Hi, I'm Stefanie Mosca here in Austin, Texas at IT Expo Austin 2012. And today on the show I have joining me Tab Schadt, CEO of DoubleHorn. Tab, thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome.
How's it going?
It's going great. Enjoying the show.
Great. Glad to hear that. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what DoubleHorn is doing right now in the market and kind of the position that you guys are playing.
Sure. Well, we've been around since January 2005. We were founded. We've been focusing on the SMB market for like the last 7 years. Really the last year we've been focusing on enterprise as well, growing that side. Delivering hosted VoIP, SIP trunking, managed network services. What we found over the last 7 years was that businesses really like bundled products. They like one service level agreement, the one throat to choke, one billing source. So right now we're really capitalizing on this cloud-based technology to continue that model, because that model has just been proven over and over and tested, time tested, and it's working very well. And that's what's happening with cloud services right now. There's an abundant places to go get them, but not make them a cohesive, unified experience.
Right.
And then you definitely can't buy them all in the same place. So we're really focusing our energy to be a marketplace where you can actually transact, purchase these, and then keep them underneath the same service agreement, very much like we did with VoIP, unified communications, the CPE, the phone, the email, that whole model, just taking it to the cloud and just leveraging it even more.
So obviously you guys have been really successful with the business model that you started the business with.
Right.
And now you're really building on it to really help your customers take it to that next level.
Yeah, because the cloud's the same way. They were confused in the early days about, okay, VoIP, where do I go to get VoIP? Do I get the phone and then I go get a VoIP line? Or, all that was very confusing for them. And it just now in the last couple of years has ironed itself out to where it's really just stamped. But there's always 2, 3, maybe even 4 providers to make that happen. So cloud's the same way. It's just going to be very confusing. It's cloud, I hate to use the word integration, it's a little heavy, but they need a consultant. They need that advisor to continue to roll things up, make sure they work, and give it to them. Because they want the technology, but they don't want 6 different providers to get it.
Right.
And we just went through that, like I said, over 7 years. The same model, so a lot of what we do daily is not going to change. It's just going to be different technologies we bundle together.
And you talk about this unified experience. Tell us a little bit about how you're able to kind of really capitalize on the move from of the industry transitioning to the cloud.
Yeah, well, so first from a technology standpoint, just virtualization and what the cloud allows us to do, whether it's private or public clouds, that's going to allow us to have bigger footprints and capture more services. But again, we got to bring those together in the back end for our customers. That's the unification I'm talking about. So whether it's cloud servers, whether it's SIP trunking, whether it's session-based management, hosted SBCs, we're getting into that business, which is very interesting, cloud storage servers, bringing all that together, that's a unified experience, but it has to all work. That's the other piece. It has to be interopted, so we're doing a lot of that work as well. And that's where I think the opportunity is in the market, because it's still not all interopted yet.
Sure.
It's just out there, right?
And obviously there's a very high demand for these bundled services that you guys provide. What kind of feedback are you seeing from the service providers and the customers?
From the customers, very, very high. I mean, we thought that rolling out cloud storage, cloud servers, for instance, which is IT and communications have just come together. They're purchased the same way, or we're in the business of making them, enabling them to be purchased the same way. Customers want to purchase them the same way. They want to purchase a SIP trunk just like they purchase a cloud server,
right,
when they want it on demand. So the feedback from the portfolios, from the customer perspective, is great. The more you roll out, if it works and they can buy it, and if they get that one provider, they'll consume a lot of services. So that's very good. The provider standpoint, there's still that integration struggle. We're still having to work with providers to come around outside of their traditional ways of doing business.
Right.
Because if they don't change, ultimately you don't get the best solution for the customer.
Yeah.
So it's a very selective process, I think, it's a demand-driven from the customer side, which is different in the business these days. Used to be the supply chain.
Couldn't agree more, yeah.
Used to be supply chain driven, now it's demand-driven. So service providers are going to have to change. I don't want to say their days are limited, but they're going to be in for tough times.
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, just seeing how they're kind of late to adopt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really important for companies like you to come in and really help them to understand why it's so important to transition.
Absolutely, and the other thing, communications is slower than IT.
Right.
Now, not at the consumer level, it just exploded. It leapfrogged the enterprise though. The iPhone and all of that just exploded. And now it's kind of having this retrofit back. But communications, just has to catch up very quickly. And a lot of companies say we're in the cloud and we're doing this or that, but if you really lift up the sheets, there's a lot of things that haven't changed, and that's going to come back to bite them, you know. And that's why we're just doing a complete holistic view of the business and changing ourselves where we need it. You know, we've hired software developers, we've hired a vice president of platform development, who I think you met earlier, Robert Erickson, bringing the realities to the world. There's software on top of the network. You can't just be a hardware telco anymore.
Sure.
It just doesn't
make sense.
You've got to
be able to do it all.
You have to give the best experience to the customer, and that's what they're demanding. So they'll go someplace else. You know, it's
Sure. And speaking of Robert, I mean, one thing that he and I discussed was just in terms of offering that immediacy for the customers to be able to obtain these solutions. And you guys recently came out with a launch of a product that really helps to enable that.
Absolutely. With iApp, it's an integrated applications and process platform. And the concept is it's 3 components driven by a marketplace, an e-commerce engine, and then a user self-service portal, which we spend a lot of time on the portal. Again, it's the experience. The content is not necessarily the concern from the customer standpoint or even the underlying manufacturer. What they want is that experience and the services to work and the workflows to be quick, secure, and to make sense. So we're doing that. We're focusing our first module, which is great, on communications as a service module. So what we're doing is we're taking that comment I just made a minute ago about telcos having to change, and we're cloudifying that. We're getting that module, that vertical stood up in this marketplace. So now you can procure, you know, session border controllers, enterprise session border controllers in a hosted cloud fashion, which is very new. That's unheard of right now. But why go spend all that money if they can buy them on a session-based, you know, with their email and their CRM and everything else?
Yeah.
So it's going over very well. That feedback's been phenomenal.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, always a pleasure to catch up with you, Tab, and talk a little bit about what DoubleHorn's been up to. So
Sure.
best of luck with everything, and thanks
Great.
so much for joining us today on the show.
Thank you.